Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. And of course, it's a long weekend. So because of this, that's also even better. My name is Katarzyna Czekaj. Currently, I'm working as the engineering team leader. But in the past, I held multiple roles when it comes to agile transformation. So I've worked as a Scrum Master and also as an agile coach. In different organizations, depending, smaller ones, startups, but also bigger corporations. Mostly my experience with agile transformation comes directly from bigger organizations. And what I'd like to share with you today is a few of my observations when I was running for almost 2 years agile transformation efforts, playing the role of an agile coach. To be honest, when I started to prepare myself for this talk, I've decided to do some research. So, the easiest way to do a research is just to open a Google browser and just to type a phrase, agile transformation, to see what's out there. Maybe any interesting and interesting thoughts that are connected with what I wanted to share with you. And what I saw there, it was like tons of different materials, guides, experts, blog posts, etc., talking about how to approach agile transformation, what people have done. And recently even, I joined the conference where at least 1/3 of all the talks were focused on agile transformation. And being honest, I freaked a little bit. It was like, oh my God, what else is there worth sharing? Or actually, is there anything else worth sharing? What I didn't want to do, obviously, is just to repeat the stuff that you already heard or learned from or read about. And that's the thing I'm bringing today. That's the question actually I'm bringing for you today. And hopefully there'll be something interesting, something new, but I would like to ask you after the presentation to let me know if any of those 10 lessons you found interesting, and maybe, just maybe, there was something worth remembering after all. So when I think about agile and agile transformation in particular, I'm thinking like both of these words, so agile and transformations, are very big words. They include ideas, statements, questions, almost on a philosophical level. And combining them together creates a space for nearly impossible to achieve objective. And sometimes, in its nature, a very deadly one for the organization itself. So when we
ja okno u ciebie zamykam, bo zimno jest.
When we take a closer look at the change DNA, we may see two different types of changes. One is the structural one, and the second are normative changes. So the first one, so structural, is where our relationship to others is altered. So, it may include various changes in the social structure, for instance, changing the relationship, the status, the identities, or adding new titles for people. The normative ones, on the other hand, includes various things like adding new methods, tools, practices, techniques, etc., but they do not affect the social structure. And one important quote that I've read when I was actually playing the role of agile coach, and also were learning about change management itself, is that people do not resist the change, they just resist being changed. And that brings me to my first lesson, which is not introducing new titles, roles, or structure, or any structural changes if it's possible. So just to give you a little bit, a short story about my times and running the agile transformations and how I did learn this lesson. So when I joined the organization, I joined this as a Scrum Master, and I was working for one of the projects. The overall transformation efforts were in the very early stages. We had a lot of traction. People were very excited about new changes coming. They were joining working groups. They were trying to find new ways on how to do stuff. So a lot of energy attached to this. Big kickoffs, and one thing that we've done at that moment was hiring a consultancy agency that were to provide us certified Scrum classes. And you know what? There was like tons of people interested in joining. So everyone was super energetic. Yeah, let's join this. That'll be amazing. But after a while, what we observed is that only a portion of those people who joined got their certificates. And even less of those people really tried to implement any of the learned practices, tips, and stuff from the classes in practice. And we started to ask ourselves a question, okay, so what's up? What the heck happened there? And what I actually understand now and haven't understand back then is that by bringing the external consultancy agency, that the main responsibility was to train as much people as possible with the new roles, because those trainings have the certain title in their name. So certified Scrum Master, certified product owner, etc., etc. I just directly put people at risk. And because of this, a lot of people started, even unconsciously, to resist the change more. And I'm saying this, I would like to underline the part of the sentence that it was unconsciously, because this is just how we work as a human beings, that normally we do resist being changed, as Peter Sand said. So by organizing the classes with the new titles even in their name, and during which it was a lot about how these new roles work, what kind of practices, tools they use as a new role, we just simply polarize people into resisting the change more, even though it was done unconsciously. So lesson number one, try not to use new wording, new titles, new everything. You can do it without it and still have a successful change. What I didn't know back then is how to tackle this situation. And this is also the thing that I've learned. And that brings me to my lesson number 2, which is a tool actually that could be really helpful when it comes to understanding the structure of the change itself. So what you can do is to map people in your organization and understand what are the differences and different approaches, emotions attached to the change itself. Just to give you, again, another story, when I was playing the role of Agile coach, there was a moment of time when I took over the transformation efforts. Because when I joined the organization, I joined as a Scrum Master. I worked directly with one of the teams. And then after a while, I switched the role to Agile Coach, and I become responsible for the whole transformation efforts. At that moment of time, I just sat down and I try to understand where we are with the whole movement, where we are with the whole transformation. And what I did wrong back then is I just looked mostly on the operational layer of the change. So I was looking, okay, so do we have a newsletter? What kind of workshops we have done? What are people interested in? So very, actionable actionable layer. What can we do with this? But what I missed is a sociological one. And because of this, I've started to ask wrong questions to wrong people. And I couldn't be able to develop proper communication to get more traction and get more people engaged into the transformation. So how to do it differently? This is the tool I've learned back then, and definitely I would recommend using this if you do have going through a change. And I'm using this right now as well. So let's imagine that's your organization. Inside there may be different teams, departments, groups, etc., etc. And what we're trying to do while mapping your organization is to understand which of those people, groups / departments are pro change. So people who just simply love the idea from the start, early adopters, people that are super engaged and energetic. Also, trying to identify the people who are anti the change itself. And then what's left, those are the people that are neutral to the change. So it's like, okay, something's happening, but does it bother me? They have sometimes a lot of questions. Maybe they're confused about the change. Sometimes there are even in the denial that maybe we don't need to change, but they definitely do not have these strong opinions that they're anti the change itself. So what should be our strategy here? First of all, we should be focused on the neutral people and try to move them into the pro side of the equation. So those people are actually very, very crucial when it comes to the success of the change. So we have to, first of all, identify those people and then start asking the questions, where exactly are they? What kind of questions do they have? And what can we do? So what kind of, and this part is operational, what kind of, I don't know, knowledge, information, anything else, provide them with in order for them to move to the pro stage of the equation. Second part of the strategy, which is pretty challenging, is to be focused on these pro people. Because they're very energetic, and due to this level of energy that they have, we have to start asking the question how to keep them at this state of mind. Because definitely we don't want to lose this energy, we don't want to lose this almost startup-ish approach that they're bringing to the change. And how to do it. For instance, you can use simple tools like stating very challenging goals or adding a lot of feedback on the way, etc., etc. There are many things which you can do depending on the people, of course, and the nature of the people you are inside to keep them energetic. But the question is, for a moment, I'll give you a few seconds to think about what to do with the last group on the equation. What would you do about them? Moment to think. Okay, so normally we shouldn't do anything. So we should leave them as they are, try not to polarize them even more, because they have really strong opinions about the change and they are against it. So whatever we do at the very early stages of the change itself, we will just polarize them even more and probably cause that more people from the neutral stage will just move to the anti, and that's definitely something that we do not want to have as a result. So just do nothing. Don't focus on them, focus on those groups on the left. And what I would like you to do when you look at this, it's this thing, it's called social entropy. Think about the last change you were going through and think about where you have been, in which group. And if you were, for instance, in neutral or in proactive or even in anti, think about the things that could have worked for you if they were provided, so that you would flip to the proactive group or stay there for longer. And use those things for the future in order also to keep those people in the change itself and move them to the stage you would like them to be moved. Another story, time for another story, as me being agile coach. Oh, I've got a lot of stories. You saw in the title of my presentation that it was a bottom-up approach. But in the stories earlier, I've told you that we had a support from the senior leadership. So it's just that doesn't add up. So what's the trick here? So when I switched to the agile coach role, the transformation efforts, everything was in a really wobbly place. So we've lost actually the supporter from the senior leadership. She switched to another role, still stayed in the organization, but she wasn't a supporter for the agile transformation itself. And for a while, no one was responsible for moving forward. So the overall energy, as you look at this, as you look at this picture, you may see that we lost, no one was responsible for keeping those people energetic, so we started to lose them. Some of them moved to anti, some of them moved to neutral stage of the equation. And I've joined exactly at this moment of time when actually we had only a few people here and a lot of people somewhere here and even here. So what I've done, I've started to look around. I started to look around the people I've been working with and I knew are great leaders. And I reached out to them and asked them, hey, you want to be a part of this agile transformation again? Maybe we can start to think how to resurrect this, how to make it alive again. And I was pretty surprised that a lot of those people said, yeah, that's amazing, let's do it. You have energy, let's start it and let's do it again. So what we did actually is we formed an internal agile working group. And that was one of the best things I could have done back then. And it worked amazingly. So how to define, how to pick the right people for this kind of working group? So there are a few characteristics that you should be focused on, and I'll tell you whether we had all of them or not exactly. So first of all, it would be great to have T-shaped skills that has a representation from members in subject matters such as technology, organization design, people, leadership, culture, etc., etc. Because what we're looking for, having this agile working group, is a holistic perspective on what the organization needs. So what is the next steps in finding this agility on our own? So in the best case scenario, we would have people from sales, marketing, HR, finance, IT, etc. So any department you have in your organization. In our case, it was slightly different because we've decided that the second time we're approaching the transformation, instead of going big, we would like to go very, very small and heal first IT department itself instead of approaching the whole organization, because simply we just didn't have a manpower to be able to do it correctly. So we only have people from IT, and we wanted to be focused only about IT itself. And that worked pretty well because we still try to have people on different experience level, mostly leaders. And that worked pretty well. But that's not the only characteristic that we should be focused on. Another thing is that it's great to have people that are 100% time dedicated to working in this agile working group. So they're becoming team members for this effort. And in our case, again, we haven't got this. So we had leaders from different departments, and they just had up to a few hours per week to spend on working together and also on implementing different stuff. And I was the only person that worked 100% there, focused on what's the strategy, organizing stuff, etc., etc. But it has, it has pluses and minuses. So in our case, not having people 100% dedicated was a huge plus, because those people were leaders. I mean, actual leaders in different departments, teams. So they could just simply bring the ideas that we've been discussing and implement them in their teams. So we could have much faster feedback loops instead of having external people that were joining different teams or departments and working with them in order to implement things. So it works both ways. So there are pluses and minuses, but of course, if you have 100% dedicated people and if you are able to do it, go for it. But if you're not, you're still able to do something valuable out of this. The third one is pretty obvious. So having knowledgeable people. And by knowledgeable, I mean in different areas. So not only people that understand the craft of agility, but also tons of different aspects when it comes to building healthy organizations. And I'm not going to list all of those aspects here, but if you were to think about it, just think about what's needed to shape the organization's culture and bring the most diverse people that you'll be able to find. Because the more diverse the group will be, the more you will get out of this and the better ideas you will create. The fourth one is credibility. So it is important, it's pretty important, especially when it's a bottom-up approach and if you do not have the direct support from the senior leaders, that you're bringing the members of this group have gained a fair amount of organizational credibility so that they can use it in order to get more and more people involved, especially from these senior levels in the organization. And last but not least, and if I were to pick one characteristic from this list, I would definitely pick this one. So what we're looking for is humble change leaders that just simply know how to lead from behind. So servant leadership in a nutshell. I'm definitely not going to go into details what the servant leadership means, because I hope you all know this, but think about why you're looking at any change. It doesn't have to be a job transformation. Think about those leaders that for them, people come first, and pick them for your working group so that you would get the best results possible that you'll be able to looking for. But one thing to add about agile working groups or any working groups when it comes to the change, that it is critical that this group will capture an end-to-end view of the organization. And the question is how to do it, how to map this end-to-end view on the organization. And that brings me to lesson number 4, which is exactly the tool and technique on how to do it. And the first thing that we have to be focused on is to understanding the real pain points for the organization. Because from the one perspective, we may observe a lot of things that do not work in the organization, but what should be looking at is actually diving deeper and understanding what are the root causes of the observations that we see. And the tool I found really useful, and I've started actually to use it when I was an agile coach, and that helped me a lot to understand the nature of the organization, the nature of different behaviors inside the organization, and I've also taught it a lot, is a systems thinking approach. It's a very broad definition. When you type a systems thinking in the Google search, you'll see a number of different results. So results. So I'm not going to go into details how to do it and what's there. But the one thing to look for is to try to map problems, try to map situations, and try to look for the reinforcing loops. And those loops will tell you what are the problems, what are the real pain points, and then you can start thinking on how to tackle them. And when it comes to thinking how to tackle, so right now we do have problems, and the question is, okay, so what to do about them? And personally, what we've done is we approach this issue of understanding the problem and defining, okay, so what are the next steps and actions slightly differently. Because we've decided to use a standard product approach that probably all of you are familiar with. So we've decided, having a product, we have a problem. So let's define what are the audience, what are the personas. Let's check whether the problems that we have identified, whether they have the same problems. And then let's define the product mission, product vision, product strategy, etc., etc. So just treat change as a normal product that you're developing together with people that has some audience, that has some stakeholders. Map those people, who they are, and just organize it around it using the standard methods, tools that you know from the product approach. And that's actually, it's pretty straightforward, especially for someone who knows how to tackle the products, how to build great products. It's just, okay, so now is the time to do this and that and this and that. And that's just, laid out all that you need to do. And the great thing about this is that you're actually learning how to sell those products. And once you do that, you're actually bringing more people that are looking for this problem to be solved in the picture. And they're just becoming these pro people that we've talked about. So you're extending the groups that you're looking for, but try not to tackle everyone at first, because it just simply won't work. So pick just one group, one persona, and focus on this. Focus on helping those people, and then move to the next problem. Because once you start doing everything, it will be a mess. And I've done that and do not recommend doing it again. So what else can we do? Actually, while we're talking about the product and solving the one problem, we may pick some kind of pilot project or high visibility product that we're building, anything that has some tension inside the organization to make it successful, that a lot of people are looking at this, and try to focus on this particular project and implement the things that you're looking for there. So if you want to change something bigger, this is the best idea. Of course, if it's going to be successful, that's definitely going to work. If it's not, of course, you can use it as a tool, as a case study with some lesson learned, use for the future. So in both cases, it will work on some level. And actually, that's exactly my story, because when I joined the organization as a Scrum Master, I was working directly with one of bigger projects at that moment in time in the organization, and focus on changing the leadership, the structure, the way we've been working, just to make sure we're working fast enough, we're reaching our business goals, we're focused on the customer. So a lot of things change on the way, but what was the best thing about this is that the most senior people that were looking on this project started to be an advocate for the change itself. Even though it wasn't like direct, we haven't been asking him to do it, he just become this advocate for his peers. So just like that, we've started to gather more and more people from the senior level in the organizations, becoming the advocates for the change and trying to also try this in their own parts of the organization. So Definitely case studies on one project, focusing real hard to do it, to make it work, definitely will pay off, even in the ways that you're not thinking while starting this. But only having this, high visibility project and discussing about all of those lessons, there's one thing that we should be focused on. The most important thing I would say, I think right now, it's the leadership. Probably all of you have heard about Simon Sinek and other people that talk a lot about how important the leadership inside the organization is. And I've already told you about agile working groups, how to pick the right people, for instance, focusing on those servant leaders. But from the change perspective, so like agile transformation, which was the most important thing for me, was to give the leaders the right tools, answer their questions, help them to find themselves in the change first, so that they could help people that they're working with to also adapt to the change. So if we just focus on the people inside the teams, for instance, and just leave the leaders to tackle this on their own, definitely it won't work, because the communication needs to work both ways. So we have to focus on the leaders first, so that we get the result of the people joining the change afterwards. So a lot of workshops, a lot of coaching, a lot of additional activities attached to the leadership. But also, I designed something different, because it's not only about leaders that exist in the organization right now, but it's also about building, about creating the leaders that are not leaders right now, the future leaders, people that want to be leaders, so that they will have the tools, the mindset that we're looking for from the start. And that was a program. So I've designed, I'll skip this. I'll design the program. It took us around 8 months or 8 or 9 months together, but we're focused on, first of all, finding people that would like to become leaders in our organization in the future, and focus on this leadership toolbox that would be useful for them in the future. So we've been meeting bi-weekly, something like that. And at the very beginning, this group was focused on learning new stuff. So mostly I and also other leaders from this agile working group were organizing workshops for those people to learn as much as possible. But on the way, we've started to switch the narrative a little bit. So we've started to do the less workshopy, lecture-y way, and to switch a little bit more into asking people, listening to them, giving them the voice. And as more voice we gave them, the more autonomy we gave them, the more self-organizing the group started to become. And it naturally evolved, because the program ended after 8 or 9 months, but this group naturally evolved into the community of practice, because they've been this group from the beginning. They've learned from each other a lot, and they were just bonded. And to be honest, it was the first time for me ever that I've managed to build this self-organizing community of practice that I wasn't needed. And that was the dream. I've tackled this at least a few times in the past, and every time it was a huge disaster. But at this moment of time was like, it just worked. We had the core, so we started to open this for other people to join. So that's, and we've done it slowly. It wasn't like this, let's send an emails and ask everyone who's interested to join, but it was like whisper marketing, as I call it. So the one that started to talk asked, okay, invited next people, and those people invited the next ones if they liked it. And because of this group was really bonded, and it just simply worked. And being honest, it still exists, even though I'm not there for 2 years, I guess, or even more. The community of practice still exists. It's in a different shape. There are different people inside, but it works. So apparently there was something in this way of building the community of practice. And having community of practice is crucial when it comes to the change or agile transformation itself. Giving the space for people to exchange their problems, asking questions, finding the solutions, learning from each other can not only bring this bond, but also can help people to design better change itself and finding the things that they wouldn't find on their own, but as they're a group, they're now starting to see. So super crucial and super important. And now it's time for the last two lessons. And those lessons are the lessons that I didn't know back then. And right now I see them as the most important ones when it comes to agile or any culture changes, especially agile transformations. So number nine is being focused on technology. If you're doing software, that's the IT. If you're not doing software, that's any way how you approach designing your projects or products. For me, as I was the agile coach, that wasn't the most important part I was looking on. And what I would do differently right now is to start from technology, from looking at this. So focusing, for instance, on the upgrading of infrastructure in order to be able to reduce the end-to-end lead time. Because what is a great thing about this is that once I was an agile coach and I was working with multiple teams and I was running retrospectives, for instance, with them, there was one thing they all have in common. It's the technological constraints that they were talking about that they've seen as major blockers in the process itself. And that was the real issue that I should be focused on first when I was an agile coach, and I didn't do that. And you know, if you're making software, you have to be focused on how to do the best of the best. So things like cloud solutions, automatically done continuous integration, continuous deployments, if that's what you're going for, proper monitoring that will allow to detect anomalies and problems very early in the process, measuring the right things like time to detect, time to resolve. Those are the things that we should be asking and we should be striving for when we're running agile transformations. Because methods, daily meetings, retrospectives, blah, blah, blah stuff will come in second. And that is the first thing that we should be focused on, because without this, first of all, we won't get any IT people on board because they will just simply see that they have blockers, they have real issues, and there's nothing done about it. And without it, we just can't deploy better products, we can't deploy it faster, we can validate it faster with the customers. And I think that's what we're looking for if we're going agile transformation. And if we're not, the question is whether we're doing the right thing. So lesson number one for me, and I'm using this right now, especially as I'm working directly with technological team as a team leader, is to focus on technology first, and everything else magically just happens, being honest with you. And lesson number 10, the most important one for me, that I've learned the hard way, because I was also always very energetic person, always keen to look for amazing ideas, something new that's happening. And more than often it wasn't working. And for me, I've learned this hard way that doing an agile transformation, it's more about being pragmatic than anything else. So fix the things that needs to be done. Focus on the things that really needs your focus right now, and not on some amazing stuff that could be done somewhere in the future. Help the real teams. Focus on the real people, on the real leaders that you're looking for. Be actionable and use data to support your decisions, but be as pragmatic as possible in what you're doing. Because in agile transformations, it's like you can do tons of stuff, but focusing on just one thing and fixing this one thing, that the most important thing that needs to be fixed and will help people, that's like the most important step that you can make when it comes to agility, because it's not about processes. It's not about the methods that you're using. It's not about whether it's Scrum, whether it's Kanban, whether it's whatever. It's not about this. It's about the real people that have real struggles, and focusing on the work. So managing work, managing how those things depend on each other, being pragmatic, is the most important lesson that I've learned the hard way, and I still use it. And if I were to share with you the most important lesson, or one lesson from agile transformation, is to become pragmatic. And I guess that's all. Of course, I could list much more lessons, but those 10 were the most important for me, and the one that changed me as a person, and especially changed me as a leader. So thank you all, and hopefully you found anything that was inspiring, as I mentioned at the very beginning.
Yes, thank you very much, Katarzyna. Of course, those 10 lessons were very inspiring for all of us. And I know that based on the agenda, we should have now the short break. But
yeah, hello. So let me share my screen and start the presentation. A moment. You should be able to see my screen.
yes, and we are able.
Okay, great. So hello, lovely people. I'm here to answer question. We are remote. What's next? Two disclaimers at start. I'll be kind of focusing on IT because this remote can be done 100%, but this also applies to every single industry that can go remote. And second disclaimer is I cannot really go into really deep details given the time. So maybe we'll have some questions, or I'll leave some contact details at the end so you can reach out to me. So let's start with a small introduction. Like I was introduced, I'm Łukasz Kotarek. I'm a software monk, basically working with software for all my career. I'm currently a coding technical lead at BlockFi, and we are a financial services company that is building a bridge between cryptocurrencies and traditional financing and wealth management products. And we are remote first. And after hours, I focus on music, mostly drumming and designing it. So let's check our agenda for today. So these two bits we covered or are covering right now. This talk was supposed to be different, so I'll talk about this in a moment. Then we talk what did we learn about remote, the pros and cons. Next, I believe that remote is not enough, and I'll also answer the question, what more do we need? And I won't spoil it now, what it is. I will tell you about my path, that was pre-COVID era, and we'll go to short summary and Q&A session. So let's start. Like this was supposed to be a way different talk. When I heard about call for papers for new trends project management, it was February 2020. 2020. I made a typo on this presentation, but it was before COVID happened, and I was in Nepal, living full digital nomad life, and I was working from there and sightseeing and so on, and decided to go with topic around this. So I wanted to convince you all that remote is the future of work, and we all should at least try remote. But then things happened. We were forced to go remote. And I guess there is no point in telling you to try remote now, right? As we all tried it in one point or another. And so, once again, the question, we have remote, what's next? So what did we learn? So there are obviously some pros and cons. I read a really interesting research by one company, but I sadly cannot disclose either the results or the company name, but I did my own research, which is coincidentally very similar to this research. And I found out some of the interesting information that I want to share. One of the things I wanted to measure was how does one rate remote work, and I got like above 4 out of 5 on average, with only 1, 2 out of 5, and with people both being forced to work remotely and working remotely before. So that sounds really optimistic. So let's see what are the most common pros of working remotely. So the first place, and this won't surprise anyone here, is commute time. We did spend a lot of time traveling to and from the office, and we can spend this time way more productive and way better. The next one is flexible work hours. So it's when you don't have to travel to work, you can start at any time. And usually going remote also means being a bit more flexible with working hours. I'll skip one because it will be important later, just letting you know that it was there. So next one is ability to use downtime for personal tasks. And it's impossible to work for 8 hours straight without any breaks. Sometimes you have to wait for someone. Sometimes you go for a coffee. Sometimes you are blocked. And when in the office, you just waste this time. When you are at home, you can do some small personal tasks to occupy this time and spend it productively. One thing that kind of surprised me was that one's own environment can be way better than office one. People can adjust, they have their own preferences, and office can be very well supplied, but it's supplied for average person, and as we all know, the average person doesn't exist. So people have a lot of way of customizing this. One of the points here was coffee is way better at home than in the office. So even small things do work. People found out that they're more productive, and I'll touch on this later, but it turns out people can do more work when not in the office environment, which can be surprising to some people or some companies. And likewise, people can apparently focus more when working remotely. And maybe last but not the least, it's more family time. And it kind of ties to others, because you don't have to drive to your work and waste time. you can spend this time with your family, because you can start and your day maybe a bit later, you have some time for your family. And maybe because there is some downtime and you have like half an hour to do something, you can maybe play with a kid or something. And my personal highlight here, you wouldn't believe how happy he got when I started working remotely. It was like a heaven for him. Yeah, but it's not all gold and beautiful. There are some thorns to those roses. So there are obviously some remote problems. Those are from my research. We'll address some of them right away, some we will address later, and few are here to stay, sadly. So first thing is weak internet connection, and this is something that we cannot do much, and it's probably here to stay. If we live somewhere with no options for better internet, this is sadly a big thing and joy killer, and it ranked first in the remote problems. But we can take a look at some other problems. So this was high as well. And socializing, this is something that's in current era is hard to take care of. Before that, forcing yourself to meet people every day was doing the job. And next one was team communication. People actually were not happy about the state of their team communication. So how they communicated with with their teammates. And this is something that we'll cover soon, because only going remote will actually make this work way worse. Next is life-work balance. Contrary to some companies that would think working from home would mean people would just start doing their own stuff and not working, it's the other way around. And a lot of people have problems signing off of the work and are actually working for a longer time. This can be solved by, for example, having not having personal stuff on work computer, or having separate computer just for work stuff. This is something I've been guilty of as well, because when I stopped working, I started doing my personal stuff on the same computer I've been working. So it was really easy to check something, or there was some problem I was trying to solve, so maybe I got some solutions pop up in my head. And basically same with space. It's really great to have a separate room. If you cannot do that, having separate corner of a room would work. So you need to have tools and space where work happens and nothing else. So if you close this computer, you leave this space, there will be no more work happening. And this is a cure for that. You've seen that people are more productive, and there are people also less productive, and there are people also less focused. This is mostly because people didn't have time to prepare for remote work, and they have really distracting conditions, or like if you have small loud kids and you don't have separate room, you cannot hope to focus really deeply on tasks when there is all kinds of distractions around. So I feel those two, and basically next one as well, those are coming from not being prepared and being like thrown into deep water of remote work. And so the parallel here is that I got my feet wet and then got slowly into water and started to learn how to swim when it comes to remote work. And everyone who got to start remote work due to COVID were basically thrown into deep ocean, told to swim, and some of those people are not really happy about the situation for some reason. And which is interesting that some companies are undermining pros. So the company I told you about that did the research, they did it because they were not trusting their employees, who told the upper management that they're happy with the change and it's great and they're more productive and so on. So company conducted external research, hired an external company to do research on that. And when they actually saw the numbers that were confirming what the employees were telling them, it was when they believed, luckily. And not to mention all the job offers with remote now, obviously, but after it ends, going back on site. For me, it's like, so we can or can we not go remote? And it's kind of philosophical thing, but for me, if there is no point in hiring people who you don't trust, and usually like we are all adults and we can be trusted. So that's kind of strange, but it's also something I've seen and it's a kind of a problem. So like apart from internet connection, which is problematic in its own way, there were some issues that I told you that I'll be covering later, and the time has come now. We'll talk about two things that will help us work more smoothly when going remote and minimize all the cons. So first thing is going distributed. So you may be asking, why go distributed? And if you're asking that, you're probably an employer, not an employee. So first thing, you've got unlimited talent pool. So if you're hiring just from Tri-City area, you've got all the people from Tri-City area and you're competing with all the companies in Tri-City. If you increase that for Poland, European Union, and the whole world, you've got basically unlimited talent pool with way less competition because there's still not many companies going full distributed to choose from. And by best talent, I mean best talent for you, your organization, because there is no such thing as best talent in general. This is the skipped pro from the pros and cons slides. This was really high. I can work from wherever. Obvious example is me going to Nepal and working from there, but there are many stories of people renting a house in Croatia and working from there because the weather is better and like the scenery is really great, and after work they can unwind and go into forest or whatever. And it also means happier employees, which is also a plus. And if that doesn't convince you, there are less office costs, because if you don't have an office or you have a really small one, you obviously pay way less for that. And with employees being happy for that reason, I see that as a double win. And not to mention, company events are even more awesome when you meet like once or twice a year in person. That makes it way more special than just cramming under the office into a bus and going somewhere. And I know those are way more complicated to pull off. The logistics are can be a nightmare when you getting people all across the world to one event, but those will be really special and memorized forever. And some may ask about formal details. Those are usually easily solvable. You, for example, don't have to change your tax residency if you're traveling around the world. So as long as you're hired in the same country, it's easy. And if not, there are tools like Deal, for example, that make it go smooth. So it's a problem that's been solved. You may asking, there are those little things called time zones. So they do exist and they can be a major pain. So we at BlockFi make it work with basically 3 or 4 time zones in America, all the time zones in EMEA region, so that's Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa, and APAC, so Asia Pacific region. So it's doable, and I'll tell more. You need to embrace them if you want to go distributed, because trying to skip time zones will make it not work for everybody. And let me quickly plug in a small thing. With distributed also comes the culture question. There will be way more different cultures at work than it would be in at a local company. But I see it as additional pro. While you have to learn some of the cultures and it will take some time, having diverse crowd will get you more perspective, which can lead to better solutions. So this is awesome. Time zones are doable, but we need to go asynchronous as well. So not only distributed, but also asynchronous. So you may be asking how to handle asynchronous work. And I get that there's a lot of stuff. We started just with remote, and now we're covering whole globe with whole time ranges. So we need to start treating asynchronous communication as a first-class citizen. So use something like Slack. And I know there are Microsoft Teams, there's WebEx, Teams, and many different solutions. Basically, go with some chat-like solution that you can write to people, and they don't have immediately answer. And don't ping people unless it's really urgent or important. And I'll quickly show you the next point. It's usually not. So the question is the production burning? No, then it probably can wait for 10 minutes, half an hour, it depends. Basically, imagine, and this goes back to people more focused and more productive during remote work. You're in a flow state and someone goes to your desk, taps your shoulder, and everything's gone. You're out of your flow, you don't know where you were, and you cannot continue work in a way that you wanted. Basically, pinging people is the same way, but it's not as intrusive as going to someone's desk and trying to get their attention. So this is something that we have to learn, and I had to learn this as well, because we are so used to going to someone's desk and getting information right away. But to be honest, I also learned that it may sound urgent to me, but usually it's really not. One thing to remember with asynchronous communication is we need to over communicate. So for example, the thing I do, we have a private Slack channel for our team, and I will write my to-do list for the day, and I'll update what I actually managed to do. So this is one of the example, but we should focus on communicating too much and giving too much information than too little. It doesn't hurt to get like to read one more line of message, but it can hurt if you don't get some important information. And remember that mail is still a thing, and it's being used, and you can use it too, but don't expect response right away. Some things needs to stay synchronous, so we cannot do everything asynchronously. So do meetings if it's really needed, or if it saves time. Sometimes it's quicker just to hop on a call and explain something than do it in writing. Sometimes we really need to make a meeting to get some decision going. But if you do, every single discussion, meeting, decision made, and so on should leave something permanent. And what I mean by that, so for example, we can go to the Google Docs and write notes from the meeting. We can record the meeting, which is that simple. We can write some stuff on Confluence and so on. So basically create artifacts, and those are essential when working remotely asynchronously, because you won't have a situation when everyone can join your meeting. I mean, those do happen, but you cannot count on it. And in spirit of kind of over communication as well, you need to be sure that everyone has the same information. I feel like, for example, recording meetings is a great way of having them. So, for example, we do record our things. So if someone can't join for whatever reason, they can just watch it. Remember, don't overuse meetings. You can easily use RFC for discussion, and coming from engineering world, RFC is request for comments. It will basically be you write a good document with some proposal, for example, and send it to the team so people can start writing comments on that. So you basically are asking for comments. Those are a great alternative to just sitting down and brainstorming, as they can be done asynchronously. They can be, you can think things through before you write, and you have everything set in, maybe not set in stone, but if someone goes to the document, they'll see what's been happening and can follow all this discussion and comments. But you need meetings to one thing. You need to meet for chit chat, and it's something that I learned quite quickly when we just hopped on like 10 minutes chit chat call with people to talk about anything really. That this is the social aspect that can also help you, especially in this era, to cope with not seeing people. By the way, Basecamp, it can be a hot topic right now. Does video stand-ups, so they can have stand-ups asynchronously. So let's go quickly over my remote story, how it went. So I prepared for it as much home office as I could, and just started working from home. I started writing to people instead of working there. So I started doing that in the office and not caring if I get answer right away or not. I designated space at home for work, and it's been working quite great. Before, like when it was still possible, I started socializing a lot more. So my goal was to meet with one one person I know every single day, be it on lunch or a coffee or for a beer at the evening, whatever, but at least one person daily, and it's worked great. Started using Toggle for work time tracking, so I know when I should sign off. It's really a great tool. When I see the hours tick, I know that because when you're working sometimes and you get in the flow, it feels like, for example, 1 hour passed, but in reality, those were 4. And without some kind of clock, it's really hard to keep time. And obviously, travel and work makes it even better. And if possible, it's a great opportunity because you sign off and you see amazing places and amazing people. So, quick summary: there are obviously pros and cons, but some of the cons are because remote was forced, or because we want, and by we I mean either company or our habits want to stay local and synchronous. If we embrace asynchronous remote, everybody wins because employees are happy and employers are happy. They have more productive employees that are happy and less costs, which is great. And yeah, this is basically it. This is time for the thank you and questions. I've been Łukasz Skotarek. You can find me on Twitter or just email me if you have some additional questions that you would like to cover that we won't be able to do today.
Thank you very much, Łukasz. Actually, I have one question based on comments that I read on the chat. What do you think? The home office is quite easy to deploy, or it's difficult? And when it comes to the trust to our employees, peers, especially in Poland?
Yeah, so it depends, like any IT question. But yeah, as I said, especially I know IT best because I've been working there for all my life, so I can vouch for that. And I feel like people are undervalued when it comes to trust, and I don't know why it happens, but you can put a lot of trust, and there's been research on that. If you put more responsibility on people, they will behave more responsibly and so on. So for example, there are also research with unlimited paid time off, which turns out that almost no one overuses it, and people are even underusing it, and management has to keep telling people to, hey, go on vacation. So I trust may be an issue, but it's I mean, the issue in that way that people need to change their way of thinking about it, because people are really trustworthy. And when it comes to home office, it depends on the environment you have, because obviously if you're like on 10 square meters with a lot of things happening, it will be difficult. But I think any environment can be adapted. Even if it's just one corner in your room that you have one chair and you're working there, it will be enough.
Yeah, actually, the one corner is it's my situation right now. So yes, thank you for this for the answer. And we also have another question. Let me just read it. What is the top challenge to you personally, and also to the others?
Yeah, so I think changing the way I would like repeat that over and over again, but changing the way of thinking. Even though I've been working for a long time, sometimes I still feel like my things are really urgent, and it's still somewhere there, and I really want like to just get to someone and tap their shoulder. And yeah, I think this is like the biggest challenge, because all the time zone differences are easily solvable by, for example, recording meetings or doing some buffer meetings with someone. And we basically made work US, like middle US with India. So by creating artifacts. So those are not problems. Like the mindset is is problematic. And I still sometimes just take a look at even if I close the work laptop, sometimes open it and check if maybe there's something doing. So those are like the biggest problems.
Yes, just to do this hard cut
Yeah.
between work and life. I also see some interesting question to me from BigLab. So how can we implement Agile in construction? It's quite an interesting question. So because time and money is fixed. This is the questions that BigLab ask us, and maybe BigLab, feel free to unmute yourself because maybe we need more clarification to your question.
Actually, I am in the mega construction project, but most of the construction project, the time is not fixed, and the scope is not fixed, as well as the money is also not fixed. So how we can in micro level we can implement the agile in a small work package or a small group of activities as compared to IT. And in the construction sector, it is not here totally equipment based. It will be 40% equipment and 60% man based. So how we can implement the agile in the construction sector? That is my question.
Yes, and I already see one comment from Gosia that Gosia is really happy to help you with your questions, and she will send you the case study published on PMI website. So thank you very much, Gosia. Or maybe I don't know if our speakers would like to comment on that. Then also feel free to share your feedback.
Okay, I will mail her because I am also interested for Agile also, or I am also the PMI member. So
okay.
How we can implement?
And BigLab, I see already a lot of comments to your questions, so I would like to ask you just to go through it. And in case you will still have some questions, just contact us offline. So yes, thank you very much. And looking on the time that we have still 12 minutes to close our event today, I would like to once again thanks to Łukasz and to Katarzyna and to all of you for this active part when it comes to the question on chat. I will maybe share my screen again because there is something very important for you that will come at the end of our event today. So hope that you see once again my presentation. So as I said, we will also share with you a link to the survey that we prepared because we would like to improve our future events. And we have still a lot of events ahead of us. And to be updated and informed about our upcoming sessions of conference, please follow our social media. Here you can find all links to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and also our email address. And also one happy announcement is that we meet, I hope, with all of you in 2 weeks in our 4th session of New Trends in Project Management. And please meet Emma and Eva, our next speakers. Unfortunately, we meet those ladies also remotely, as Łukasz presented in his presentation. And just as you know, this year the conference hosts many events. So we have still a lot of sessions that you can also see once you follow our social media. Just one important information is that we have also holiday break in July and August. But for the rest month, you can find the titles of upcoming workshops, seminars, also when you visit Facebook, LinkedIn, or our website, or you simply contact us via email. And now is the time for taking a screenshot, because I am sharing with you the PDU codes. So please use this time, and if you're interested, make a screenshot, because soon I will just move to the next slide and it will be over. No worries. I will just give you 2-3 minutes, and you can make a picture. Hope that you were able to do it, and if not, then I will keep this slide. And in the meantime, I would like to thank you for joining our event. Even due to the small technical issue at the beginning, we managed to do it. I hope that you all enjoy to be with us today. See you in 2 weeks, and have a nice rest of the event. So yes, thank you very much, my dear PMI colleagues.